Dmitry, good afternoon. Thank you very much for accepting to talk with me, to conversate in this web series I call War as Reset. Actually, the title should be enough for you to stop and run away, but actually you decided to be here. You are talking to me from Moscow. I have to ask you a question. You decided to record this with me, showing your face, your name and surname. Are you sure you want to do this? Are you aware of the consequence that this could have?
Yes, sure. I'm a little bit afraid of the consequences, but exactly there is I think it's a very right time just to say truth, and to take truth and to take the responsibility when you're saying truth. So this sounds like decision, yes.
I thank you very much for your courage. Let's start with the consequences. What could be the consequences?
For me personally.
Yeah, for you and for everybody that is talking about war.
So now it's just like only administrative responsibility. It's not crime like 15 years for the prison. It's should be in a very strong cases. But if you just say something by your opinion, it should be like a penalty, like fine. Like five. So the recent case that it was like 500 euros in rubles.
Like for the journalist Marina Ovisniakova, apologies for not telling her name perfectly, that appeared on TV with no war ban.
Yeah.
Right now you're in Moscow.
Yes.
Your name is Dmitry, and a couple of days ago I talked to our colleague Dmitro, a Ukrainian colleague. Dmitry is something else. It's according one or the other language. You know, I'm not neutral. I am pro-Ukrainian. I stand with Ukraine because I think this is a brutal aggression from the Russian government to a sovereign state. And this conflict is very dear to me because war is back in Europe. Can you share with us what is going on right now in Moscow, where you are, in Russia in general? What is the feeling?
So there is a general feeling and the atmosphere of illness in Moscow, and many people run away from Moscow, especially very active people, and the people who had a political opinion on this difficult situation. So many people just run away, and now it's in the center of Moscow, so much less people you can meet, and many abandoned places like shops, restaurants. Now it's looks different like it was 15 days before.
What actually happened? Are people sheltering? Are people just hiding? Are people preparing for an attack, or is just something else?
People just trying to understand the new reality, but it's rather difficult to do it because it seems like nothing has changed in Moscow. That's like a regular life. But yes, it's like a sheltering in a past memories about the reality. Now it's the vast majority of the people are not ready to face the new world, the new reality. This is true for Russia, for Moscow. It's
what is the? You said it twice with a woman. What is the new reality? What are you referring to?
That there is no future if you live in Russia. This is a new reality. There is no future for your children, for your family, for you yourself. So there is no. You can think about any plans in Russia now. You're living only at the present. There is no past, there is no future, only the present. Like a spiritual practice, you know, like a yoga.
Yeah. Many seems to deny what is happening. Actually, President Putin at the end of February said that he was going to organize a military operation in Ukraine to denazify Ukraine and to change the leadership. Did people believe him?
So Russia is very big country, you know. It's and so there are so many people. They are so different, and you should understand that Russian government use a very strong weapon. It's like a very concrete weapon that is used in Ukraine, and the weapon against the people in Russia. This is propaganda. This is real weapon that is used. Now, if you can check our television, it's 23 hours propaganda channel. They use it just all day, just to.
What do you mean with propaganda? What is exactly happening?
The propaganda is a way of saying about the reality, what is going on now. And if you want to know something about the reality, and if you need to feel earth under your leg, you need something just to take. If you are not have a time for research, if you needed something, so the propaganda give it to you, the way of thinking and the explanation what is going on. So this is just like a I don't know how to say it. You know, it's just like to produce your boots. So you can do it by yourself if you are master in boots, but if you're not, you are going to the shop. But so in Russia there is only one shop where you can buy only one boots. So, and if you are not ready enough to produce your own opinion, to produce your own boots, so you go to the shop. So this is now happening. It's you know, it's not the beginning of this phenomenon in Russia has roots in Soviet period era. So this is some people has like antidote for propaganda, some not.
And those that don't have it stick to the propaganda. This is not new. This is not only Russia. As you are aware, I'm conducting this conversation to have a depth look at what is happening, not just Russia attacking. Russian are the bad guys, as pictures in many Hollywood movies or 007 movies. I had many Russian friends and they're a lot. But really to understand why is war back in Europe. In my previous conversation, I underlined that war is the opposite than the Vanity Fair. Actually, war is the atrocity fair. What is war?
I think the war is only one way that people know, like in general, about how to react the aggression. So this is very common for Europe about the war. The first one, the second one, it was very common for Europeans to be involved in a war. It was only one way to react the aggression that people anyway have. And I think this is just like a common reaction on it. We just were too many times in a very peaceful situation, but now we needed to react the aggression. I think the thoughts about the Jung thoughts about the Russia as a shadow of the West is very useful in this situation. Where is European aggression? Where is it? Where is it now? Okay, if you do not responsible for your aggression, you do not do something aggressive. So then aggressions come to your house. I think from the depth level, this is like very helpful to understand what is going on.
Can you say more for those that are not so much into Jungian terminology?
What do you mean?
We Jungians know very well what is the shadow.
Yeah, the shadow, that's so.
Try to say this in a way that for those watching this interview that are not aware of what Jung's ideas are, could be easy. Because from what you just said, could be understood that you are pro-Russian or pro-Putin, and so you are saying that because Europeans' aggression went into the shadow, there was this war.
Yeah, but to go through this very awful situation, it's very important to take in mind the two polarities, not only one. So if you're saying that you are pro-Ukrainian, that you are on this side of the conflict, then your shadow is a Putin. And now you should take care about your Putin inside you, because this is very important to not to forget that it influenced on you anyway. So this is a shadow. That's something that you put in a basement, and you should just to go and to check what is it in your basement. You should take care of it.
So to make it clear for those listening to us that don't know about Jungian concept, you're saying that you are Russian and your shadow is in the West somehow, or in Europe. The shadow is the opposite. The shadow is what you are, but what you don't admit to be. And our shadow is in Putin. Okay. For me as a Jungian, it's clear. But what about Ukraine? Ukraine is a sovereign state that at the end of February was attacked for no reason, one could say. Was Ukraine attacked for a reason, according to you?
Ukraine wasn't attacked in February this year. Ukraine was attacked in 2014. It was much earlier.
Okay. We can say that, but what happened at the end of February was a really enormous aggression, was an invasion. What happened in 2014 or 15 is a consequence of Maidan, the consequence of 2006 and 8, but the scale is enormous.
In 1914, it was shadow invasion of Russia, but it was still the invasion of Russia at that time.
Tell me more about this. What do you mean with shadow invasion of Russia?
Because Russia said that there is no Russian soldiers in Ukraine, but they were there. And now they're saying that we do it. Yes, it was so, but at that time it was like a shadow aggression and shadow invasion into Ukraine.
But with shadow, to clarify for those listening, you're not using shadow for the unit. Shadow, you mean covered.
Covered, yes, it wasn't.
It wasn't. Now it's covered.
Clear. Russia said that it's not our weapon. It's not our guys who killing their people and attacking. No. But it was, and it was very interesting the reaction of the West. That the West say, okay, it's something Ukrainian there. That's
it's not our problem. It's not our problem, basically.
Yeah. Huh? And now the February situation is the consequences of ignoring the Russian aggression in the 2014.
Are you saying the consequence from the West or from Russia?
From everybody. The consequences for everybody. Because this war is more dramatic for Russia. This war destroying Russia much more than Ukraine now.
Well, you're right. Every newspaper. Well, let's be respectful, because there are thousands of people dying in Ukrainian soil, raped, burned. So from that point of view, there is almost a country that is totally destroyed and people are dying. But from a geopolitical point of view, these will affect Russia in the long term. I don't know if more or as much, but will affect Russia. All the newspaper, all the official and actually good media outlets are talking about this. There is a wrong strategic move for Putin. But before we get there, I keep saying in this conversation, Ukraine, since a long time, but especially 2006, 2008 with Yanukovych, Yanushenko, then 2014 with the Maidan, was shouting, we want to belong to those countries that are able to elect their leaders and keep their leader up. We don't want to belong to countries that are half democracy and actually are run by authoritarian leaders. I agree with you that Europe didn't listen. The US didn't listen. Maybe did something, some, again, shadow operation, but really didn't listen. Now Europe is listening because it's really afraid of the brutality of this military action, of the invasion, the bombing, the killing, and the images. But what is the ultimate meaning of this word for you, Dmitry?
The ultimate. So
deep in the Jungian sense, you know.
Stefan, there is so many levels of the meanings and so many deeper and deeper. So first of all, I'd like to mention that you said that something about the Ukrainians, that the Ukrainians do something, want something, but you should understand that the Ukraine is not so homogenic, like it's not
homogenic.
It's not so so whole as you think, as you said. It
but
was.
I say that, did I?
I'm sorry.
And is homogenic, but the majority through election voted for someone that wanted.
Yeah, but
to get.
You should understand.
Ukraine voted for someone that wanted closer ties with Europe. What happened after this?
You should understand that there is no. So there. It was like the very important reasons for today's situation. The Ukrainian society is had a very important split problems already because of the consequences of the Soviet Union. And this is that the process that Ukraine now is going through is the process of obtaining the identification of the nation. It's just like a very painful birth of the nation. And it's awful, sure, but in this case, we can say thanks to the Putin that he allows Ukraine to be united now and to go quickly to obtain this identification, to understand that, okay, this is Ukrainian language, this is Ukraine, and I will pay my life to save my country. I understand this is my country.
But let me step in, because I even say that Ukraine is an homogeneous country. I'm Italian. The northeast of Italy 100 years ago, or a bit more, was under the Austro-Hungarian Empire. As much as Lviv, Lvov, so Galicia, as much a part of Poland, Czech Republic, etc. Imagine the Austrians would attack Italy right now, or the French would attack the Germans, and the German would attack the French for Alsace. What am I trying to say? It's true that Ukraine is not homogeneous, that there are strong Russian ties, especially in the east, Ukrainian ties that could be also Polish or Hungarian. I have a patient whose grandfather was born in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, you know. The point is, Putin since 2014 and even before, couldn't bear to see Ukraine becoming a Western country based on the following traits. A political mentality different from the American one, and I'm talking about Europe. This is a study by Habermas and Derrida. A political mentality different from the American one and based on some common traits. An aversion to the use of force, first of all, and their force and insistence on law and respect for international legality. Support for a global system based on legal multilateral institutions and on human rights. Fruit of a past inspired by opposed principles and characterized by centuries of bloody carnage. Precisely, this mentality had to push Europe to build a foreign and security policy anchored the EU, overcoming the split and simplistic position between war and peace. For me, this is the ultimate reason why Ukraine wants to go west.
So if you ask about the depth level, so you need to take your look to the symbols that is appears now or to be before. So Ukraine and Russia is so closely connected, and they had so long story. It was in the beginning was the Kiev, and then only the Moscow. So the Kiev and Moscow is just like the mother and the child. And you know, the communication could be like a separation process between the mother and child, but the child would like to just to eat the mother, you know, this is something very, very...
Let it go, yeah.
Yeah, and the Kiev is a sacred place for Russians because the Saint Vladimir, so who baptized the Rus, it was a Kiev, Rus, Russia. So it was the roots of the Russian identity. And if Ukrainians say, okay, we have our own identity, we'd like to have our own state and to have our own language and politic and so on. So this means the death for the Russians because they live like a sacred wheel for the Russian civilization or for Russian ideology in general. And so it is very important for Russia to have a Kiev, to be connected with Kiev. So it's not, it was the main sign that Putin put the monument to the Saint Vladimir close to the Kremlin in Moscow. So this has no sense if you can look at this, because there wasn't Moscow at that time when the Saint Vladimir was in Kiev. It was like only forest here in this time. There is only river and forest, no Moscow. But Putin put Vladimir and said, yes, we have the right to have a Kiev. We need it. Without Kiev, there is no Russia. There is nothing. For this reason, this war is so dramatic because Putin will do everything to take a Kiev. He will kill everybody. He will destroy everything only to take a sacred place.
Yeah, but
now
I follow your
spirituality problem. This is the economical political problem. For if you'd like to understand what is going on, you need to go to the spiritual level.
Yes, but for thousands of years, wars have been fought for religious or spiritual level that were wrong.
Wrong from what point of view? This is wrong from the human ego, yes, this is wrong. But if you see it from the self, yes, this has a reason to be. We need it. We need this war all together. Europeans, Russians, Ukrainians, or everybody need it, and everybody benefits of it. Yes, in a very bad way, but we do it.
True. This is why I called my conversation War as Reset.
Yes, When the Europe was so united before this crisis?
Yes, you're right. Europe was not united, and Ukraine was not united, but
let's look to the relationship with Poland, between Poland and Ukraine. How it possible? It was a real reset of this relationship.
well, Poland and the EU, you know, Poland was the bad guys until 3 months ago. Orban was the bad guy, and he's still the bad guy. But the point for me is another. Why? Sorry, let's go back to the homogeneity of Ukraine. No, Ukraine was not homogeneous. It's not homogeneous. But now even the pro-Russian Ukrainians stick to Ukraine. Nobody expected this. But is it really necessary to invade a country like this? This is the question I ask you, the citizen, Dmitry. Is it really necessary to invade a country like this?
You know, there is no logic. You are trying to use a logic for these questions, but there is no logic. Everything what now is happening, there is no logic from the ego level of you. It's sure there is no. If you'd like to have a new territory, you shouldn't destroy it. You need to have infrastructure. You need to have hospitals, houses where people can live. You need it. You need this territory in a good condition. You shouldn't bomb it.
But you
now,
see, do you realize that if you don't say a no that is clear and loud, you might be called in line with Putin and with this idea to get Kyiv because of a spiritual, from a spiritual point of view. Because I follow you from the spiritual point of view. But this war is not only a war. Somebody calls it genocide. Actually, for me, it's an Holocaust. You said it yourself. He wants to destroy everything. He wants to kill everyone. This is an Holocaust. And I personally don't think that a spiritual goal is the right one. Not even a political one, like the US and the UK when invaded and bombed Iraq, or Vietnam, or Korea, or there is something else that I think is very, very important, and is soft power. And I think is something we Jungians use very well. Power, soft power. The Americans used it since 1945 in Europe and everywhere. It's not just the money they gave, but, you know, to work on the country, not from a top-down level bombing, as they did in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but working bottom up, so with the people, with culture. The Scandinavian countries are amazing in soft power. Why Russia failed after the fall of the Berlin Wall in soft power? It seems that Russia is not able to be part of a bigger group of nations in the transformation and evolution, if not by bombing and aggression. I never liked the fact, you know, when we were kids and we were watching Rocky on TV, there was Rocky, this Italo-American box hero, and the counterpart, Ivan Drago, the Russian, who was cold-blooded. But guys, it seems now this is the truth.
You know, the story of Russia is a story of aggression, the constant. So many wars are all over the borders of Russia. It's a story of Russia. It was very, very common for Russia just to be involved in a different kind of aggressions. So you can see on the map how big is Russia. This is still the last empire on our planet, and all this territory was united not only with a peaceful document, but it was as a rule, it was a Russian aggression just to take a new territory. It is a story. It's just like a kind of identity of Russians, just to be aggressive.
And, story of every empire to be aggressive, to control their borders. In my previous interviews, I ask, is this war, is this aggression different than the UK, the Americans, and actually the the
Stefan,
threat
I'd
that
like to.
stated after war. But look, we can talk about Chechnya, we can talk about Georgia, we can talk about now Ukraine, we can talk about Kazakhstan. It seems there are really no democratic means. And you said it, because of this conversation, you could get a fine, maybe you could even get in jail. Why is it so difficult to say what is going on is wrong? Our leadership is corrupt. We cannot go out and say this is wrong and not fear to get fined or to get arrested. This is my basic point on a very banal level, because I think our conversation now is going a little bit everywhere and nowhere.
And you don't understand it because you live on the West. You don't understand what is going on with the Russian soul. So this is one of the cultural complex. I write a little bit about lawlessness complex. This is like a very important point of view on the world. What is to be Russian? It's just to behave illegally. Law is nothing in Russia. You should understand it. It's not possible just to talk about the democracy because it's like there is no place for it. You shouldn't be to make this mistake just to think about the Russians from the European point of view. But you can think about the Russians like Christians. And I think that this is, if you're saying about the war like a reset, I think this is the answer about the problem with the West civilization, that this is like a new chance for the West just to go out from the limits that this civilization already reached. And I think that's the Putin said exactly the things about this war against the West, but against the West values, against the value of Western civilization. And in this case, the Putin also, you should understand, when I say Putin, it's not like a person like a Putin. He's like an archetype. It's the manifestation of collective unconscious in Russia now. And this is very important to understand, that we live in a like a apocalypse scenario, and Putin is has an ambition to be like Antichrist in this way. And he talked about the nuclear weapon for this reason, that he has a power to change this world dramatically, fully destroyed, or just to make to bring a new order to bring a new reality to the world. So he has a power like Antichrist.
I understand, but if I follow you, and if I follow your description of Putin's inflation, we have difficulties to be grounded, and we will just get inflated, and then somebody's really pushing the bomb. So what you said, isn't it enough to condemn Putin's action? Only thinking that Putin could be the Antichrist is not only a blasphemy, it's something that should get us really alert. And I said Putin as the other empires that attack and kill. I talk about, let me read it for you, because I want to be very equal with all my interviewees. I ask everyone, what is the difference between this war, and you said it, the spiritual level. What is the difference between this war and the crap perpetrated by the US since the Second World War, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, Korea? What about the invasion, the US invasion and occupation of political destabilization since 1946, under the guise of liberating them, and since 1991 under the pretext of spreading liberal democracy? I also underlined that Maurizio Ferrara on Corriere della Sera, the most important Italian newspaper, on the 7th of March, looked at the US invasion of Iraq and underlined that, quote, some commentators observed that it was a predetermined carnage, just like that of the last 10 years in Ukraine, 10 days or now 50 days in Ukraine. which took place after months of preparation. Then Ferrara also reminds us that the Nobel Prize for Literature, Svetlana Alexievich, has drawn a very clear picture of the imperiality impulses not only of Putin, but also for a large part of the Russian population. The long wake of the Homo Sovieticus, that is basically what you're saying. And before that of the Tsarist tradition. And then I go on asking, what about the imperialist impulses of the USA? And apart from the USA, every time the British invaded and occupied a country, they created problems and civil wars. Once they left, for example, Kenya, Cyprus, Palestine, they still occupy a part of Ireland. All the action the British crown and the death they cause are any different from those of Stalin, the US, or Putin? When colonial Britain occupied countries and took everything from them, the capitalist US invaded countries for geopolitical reasons and for their goods. The main difference is this then, I understand today. The US, the UK attack, invade for geopolitical reasons, for resources, but Putin, Russia is invading because of an archetype. Is invading because it's the Antichrist, because of spiritual command. Actually, this is much more scary.
Yes, and this is, I think, very important moment just to stop and understand what is the message the Russia or just Putin sent to everybody of us. What is the question we should find an answer? And this is a spiritual question. We need to think about our planet, about our lives, about everything what is going on, and will we really sorry about the reset the planet or not? Is this planet okay to live, to be survived or not? This is the question. This is a global question from Putin to everybody of us. And maybe we can stop now. How do you feel?
I have one last question, if you think. Is an important thing you pose. Terrible, but important. But because you talked about spirituality or a spiritual war. Are we sure it's a spiritual war or is a power war, an imperialistic war? Look at the business the Orthodox Church is doing in Africa. That's not a spiritual war. That's not spreading the Orthodox Church. It's power. My question is, why Russia has not been able in the past 30 years to transform itself from within with soft power, with our techniques that are not aggressivity, and develop and individuate in its own way. Other countries did it that have the same Slavic roots, but Russia didn't. The question I always ask to my interviewees is, what would be of Russia and Europe if Gorbachev had the time to keep on the perestroika and glasnost?
I'm sorry, Stefano, but you know, the tragedy of Russia is that it was too traumatized in 20th century. It was so less time just to be survived, to heal the trauma that Russia had in the 20th century. So many millions of people were just killed, and so unfortunately, we are still going to re-traumatization for this as I feel it. We're just trying to heal for this awful way, but we are trying to do it. As a therapist, I can say that now many of my clients and the clients of my colleagues are feeling relief because they can now talk and feel the traumas of family, the grandparents, and so on. Only now we are ready to talk about it. Only now we can touch it. In this awful situation, yes, but it seems like only one way. For this reason, we Russia wasn't able just to go through the transformation, unfortunately. And this is like, you know, in the center of each trauma, there is a psychotic content. Now you just can observe it. This is psychotic.
I'm here, don't worry.
Yeah. So yes, and
So important point, Dmitry. Very important that we at the West have to understand. I would say 20th century was the century of blood, not the short century, as Osborne says. And I'm no one to say that the Russians suffered more than the Western European, the North Europeans, South Europeans, because everybody suffered during the 20th century. But this is also because those traits of Europe that I read from Habermas and Derrida, I hope, will really be the fundaments for the reset that we, all Europeans, you and I, because I think there is no difference, because Europe is one thing. And I really wonder whether what you just said is related also to the betrayal of Georgie, the King of England, and his cousin Nikolai just before the revolution. This is something very important, and I keep on thinking. That is the betrayal. When they were swapping war uniforms until Georgie, King George, said, I cannot defend you, you have to deal with your revolutionarist, and actually didn't do much. That is the resentment of Russia versus Europe, perhaps, you know.
Yes, and I'd like to talk about the war, not just a reset, but about the way of transformation of the relationship that is not in a good way.
It's a long way, isn't it?
Yes, but I hope we have it. We have this time that.
Yeah, but you see, at least you and I can talk. We have different point of views, historical backgrounds, stories. I think my grandpas and your grandpas were in the same war on different sides. But the point for me is really, if we follow what you said, the reset, the final end, it would be really easy, because that means that we will not be able to repair. Thank you, Dmitry.
Thank you, Sufan. It was nice to meet you.
Bye-bye.